Hi, mamas, and welcome to the next episode of the Rise and Shine Moms podcast. I'm Gloria Scalise, and this is my co-host,
Marissa Olick.
And today's episode is going to be a verse that is near and dear to my heart. It is my life verse, and it's Matthew 5:16. Would you like to read it for us?
Yes.
Okay.
It says, "Let your light shine, so that people will see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven."
Today we're going to be focusing on after you have risen in Christ. How do you shine? Why? And what is the result of doing that? I was going to start by just breaking down the verse.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so Matthew 5:16, looking at word by word, it starts with therefore. And anytime that you are going through scripture and you see the word therefore, you need to ask, what is it there for? When you back up just a couple of verses to the beginning of Matthew 5, you first find that Jesus is coupling this teaching about light with his teaching on salt. If salt loses its saltiness, what is it good for? If you have a light to shine, why would you hide it? Because if you put something over top of that little candle, it's either going to snuff it out or it's going to catch whatever's on top of it on fire, and that's no good.
No, we don't want that.
When you go back even a little bit further, the beginning of Matthew 5 is the Beatitudes. It's Jesus giving his famous Sermon on the Mount, the most famous teaching about how we are to live a Christian life. And he has to actually really break it down for us because honestly, it's not the way that any of us would choose to live.
It isn't.
He says, blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Those who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness. Those are the ones who are blessed. Blessed are you when you're persecuted, when you're slandered. All of these things that none of us in our right minds would sign up for. But he says that that is actually the blessed life. That is what makes us salty, and that is what makes us light in a very dark world.
Yes, I'm reminded of John 1. It says, Jesus is the light of the world. He came into the world full of darkness, and the darkness could not overcome it. How do we shine that light? Just as Gloria said, it is by being the antithesis, the opposite of darkness. And it is so important that we not hide that light. It is a temptation sometimes because the world wants us to hide that light. Shh, don't speak the truth. Shh, don't do what's right. Shh. Everyone, live your own way that feels right. And that is the temptation, to hide our light under a bushel. But God has called us to shine. Jesus is, I would say, the greatest example of what it means to let our light shine. He abased himself so that he could lift us up. He could help us to rise and shine.
And I think what's most comforting is sometimes it can feel like a lot of pressure that I've got to let my light shine or stand out, especially for introverts out there who are like, no, I don't know about that shine thing. I don't want focus on me. But if you think about light, think about the greatest of lights, which is the sun. Nobody looks at the sun for the purpose of seeing the sun. If you look at the sun too long, you're actually going to go blind. We like the sun because it helps us see what's around us. And when we light a match, it's not because I want to look at that little stick. It's because I want to see what's in the room around me. And in the same way, the verse goes on to say, therefore, let your light shine before all men, so that you see it, so that, and you know that whatever's coming next is the purpose. The purpose of letting our light shine is so that people can see our good deeds. This world is hungry for goodness. Even people who are self-proclaimed atheists and agnostics will say, this world has so much darkness in it. It's a common question. Where was God when? Why did God let this happen? Why? People are longing to see goodness. And when they see goodness in a way that is countercultural, in a way that doesn't make sense to the natural man, they're going to be able to attribute that goodness to something outside of us. They'll attribute it to God.
I remember back in college, I did an independent study with one of my professors, an education professor. And at that point in time, he professed that he was an atheist. And I did an independent study, which involved him giving me reading and then we meeting one-on-one because I was missing a credit. But he was giving me grace in that sense. But needless to say, in those conversations, it would have been so easy, knowing that he was atheist, to not speak about God, or to not share some of the things that God has been speaking to me, especially as I wanted to become a teacher. But I shared them. And I remember over the course of our interactions, he said this. He said, there is an unforced goodness about you. And that was beautiful. But it was not enough for it to just point back to me.
Mm-hmm.
I repeatedly kept speaking about why is that goodness? Because I want to submit to someone greater than me, someone better than me, someone who is good. And so when we are letting our light shine with our good deeds, whether it's speech, whether it's actions, let us also share about the one who shines the brightest.
Well, and so much of this also goes back, as you shared about your atheist professor, that most people who do not have a relationship with the Lord usually have some sort of emotional trauma attached to it. It is not because they truly don't believe. There are very, very few true atheists out there. I mean, think about this. It says in James 2 that even the demons believe that there is God, and that they shudder at that fact. They're afraid of him, but they don't submit to him by faith. So there are many people who, and most of whom, do believe in God, a higher force, etc. Call it whatever they will.
Yeah.
But the reason that they have not submitted to that faith,
That's a good word,
is because of an emotional trauma. And if you have emotional trauma, you need to see the goodness of God. I had an uncle who I love dearly. And when I became a Christian, I used to start visiting him. So I would go and I would always share about my mission trips or what I was learning about God. And he is one of the most intelligent men, very well studied, very well read. And we'd have conversations and we'd go back and forth. His arguments could fail every single time. They're logical fallacies, most of them. But what I couldn't knock down was that when he was 6 years old, his mommy had cancer. And the day she passed away, he closed his fist and shook it at the Lord instead of at the enemy. And to this day, he's not been able to get over that emotional trauma. So he is a self-proclaimed agnostic atheist. But if he could see the goodness of God in his trauma, he would be able to submit to that. None of us are exempt from hurt and pain and suffering. We know someone who probably has emotional baggage with God.
Yeah.
And that is why we shine our light.
Yes.
Is because it is the goodness that you shine, not that they see you, but that they are able to see the goodness of God around them through you.
Yes. And that goodness, I believe Gloria mentioned earlier, the light is truth. The light is righteousness. The light is all the things that encompass who God is. And in a world where there is emotional trauma, there is disappointment, there is discouragement, that can be considered darkness. That can shroud someone's eyes, heart, soul from recognizing the light for what it is, who it is. What did John say? The darkness could not overcome.
That's right.
So let us be ones that are in the midst of the darkness that even people share about what's going on in their lives. Let us be the ones who are not afraid to shine.
And something to think about too, if you are afraid to take that step of sharing your faith with someone, or even just doing something that goes against the cultural norms, those people that you are going to witness to, evangelize, and share with, they don't like being in the dark. Throughout Scripture, darkness is seen as a sign of God's judgment. It is seen as the absence of God. Who really wants to live apart from God? Ultimately, that's hell. The absence of God is hell.
Yeah.
So do them a favor. Do them a service by letting your light shine, knowing that they actually need it, even if they don't know that they do. They need what you have to offer. Back in Genesis, the very, very first day, there was darkness and there was light. This wasn't the sun and the moon and the stars. That was created days later. In the very beginning, light started to radiate. And as we read through the Genesis account, on the end of each and every single day, God would say, and it was good.
Yes.
And it was good. I love that on the last day, as he made man and woman, he said, it is
very
good. But on that first day, he created the light and it was good. But do you know what wasn't good? The darkness was not good. He separated the light from the darkness. He didn't eradicate the darkness. He let us know the difference.
Yeah.
And when you look at Romans, how it says that nature itself testifies to the character and the existence of God.
Yeah.
The very fact that we wake up when it's light, our circadian rhythms are set to function around the light, and we go to sleep naturally as it gets dark. We are not made for darkness. As believers, we're called children of the light.
Yes, we are.
Another nerdy fun fact is, and actually this is great for moms to know. Mamas, take note of this. It is an universal fear that every single person has at some point in their life, a fear of the dark. As a brand new mom, I remember Lydia, my oldest, was only a couple days old, and I had nursed her to sleep. I laid her down in her little bed, and she woke up and she screeched. She screamed. It wasn't a baby wham, I want mom. It was like, ah! Well, it wasn't like that. It was like, ee! It's a really like high-pitched screech, and I'll never forget the noise. And I turned the light on to see what was the matter, and she stopped. She was afraid of the dark from the very like 4th day of her life.
Wow.
And all of us have a fear of the dark at some point. It's scary. You don't know what's around you. You see these shapes. Your mind starts running. But it's because we are made to live in the light.
Yes. And I love the last part of that verse. That was so good. It said, let your light shine so that they will see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So in glorifying Father in heaven, what does it mean to glorify God? In essence, they receive God in all his greatness. They exalt him as such. And the greatest exaltation is for them to, as you said earlier, surrender to him. Know that he is good, he desires good, and he wants them to live a life that is good so that they can, in turn, be shining their own light. And with that, our light is all going to be different.
That is a great point. Let's get philosophical and like a little nerdy for just a second, because good philosophy breeds good theology. It is going to help you know God better. And again, I mentioned it earlier, the verse in Romans that says that all of creation is given so that we can know God better. So looking at the scientific structure of light, what does that tell us about God? First of all, light is the fastest known traveling source. We don't have to sit there and wait for the light. We don't flip a switch and be like, the light will show up in a couple of minutes. It shows us that God is constantly at work, faster than what we can see, faster than what we can hear. Light also is either a wavelength. The longer the wavelength, the different the color. The longest wavelength is red, and it goes shorter and shorter till you get all the colors of the rainbow. The shortest one is purple.
The prism,
So some of our wavelengths, as different creatures of God, some of us have longer wavelengths than others, and some of us have shorter wavelengths in the way that we move, the way we reflect, the way we refract. And then there's also what's called a photon. And it's just this little bundle of energy that also creates different gamma rays and X-rays, and they're super powerful, super energetic, and they leave a little punch. But these little just bundles of light energy. And so all of us at different times, we're not just going to be one or the other. But with some people, my wavelength might just be real short, and it might just be for a period of time. But there will be other people in my life, maybe like my children, where my wavelength runs long. And it may not be the brightest, but it's the most consistent. Or I don't know, maybe it is super bright. They're like, Mom, you're blind to me. And sometimes you meet somebody and you just give them a little punch of photon light energy, and it serves a purpose, but you may not even know it till you get to heaven. So our light is going to look different. There's also sometimes where light is heard. It's a radio wave. You never see that light source, but the radio is a light source, but you hear it. There's going to be other times where, like X-rays, it reveals something internal that you can't see bones without a certain degree of wavelength. But then some of you out there probably have the gift of seeing what's right inside of somebody, and you can call it out when it needs to be. The impact is going to be different for all of us every single time. There's no right or wrong way to shine your light, except for what Jesus said, which would be to put it under a bushel.
I love that. And when I think about shining your light, I also think about the reality of the body. Sometimes it's so easy for us to say, oh, they're on a platform, their light is shining. And me, as a stay-at-home mom, or me cooking dinner, my light is not as bright. But the reality is that, just as Gloria said, our light shines in different ways, different seasons, and it's not about comparing our light to another, but it's about valuing how God has designed us in this season to shine, because he has specific people that he wants around us to shine forth his goodness, to shine his light so that they can glorify him. My kids, they love it when I cook. My kids, they love it when I serve. I may not be on a podium before thousands of people, but I'm still shining my light. you're still shining your light in the ways that God has uniquely designed you in every season. So what would you say is so important when shining our light? It's having a sensitivity to who God created us to be in Him.
God has given us priorities as to where we need to focus that light energy most. And that, in biblical order, is in one, our relationship with Him.
Yes.
We need to be glorifying God in everything that we do. We were talking about Psalm 34 earlier. Let your praise, Lord, always be on my lips.
Yeah.
Not just on my lips, but in my heart. Absolutely. And then to our husband. If you are a married woman, he comes next. Yes, above the children.
Yes.
Because you and your husband represent, as the two become one, your relationship with God. And what God has joined together, let no man separate. Then your children. Next, well, actually, and this might be somewhat controversial for some, your home, your household comes before your ministry. And you might be like, well, is a place, and those are people out there that I ministry to, and souls. But you know what? If you don't have your household under order, you're not able to truly serve and shine a light for your family, which are above your outside world. So taking care of your home, and I'm not saying that your baseboards have to be spotless, or anyone's coming in with a white glove check, but having a home of an atmosphere that invites the presence of God, that is clean, that is orderly, that has peace and not chaos. Proverbs 14:1 says that a wise woman builds her home. And it doesn't mean the physical brick and mortar.
No.
It means the household and the atmosphere and the heart within it. Can your husband come home to a place of peace? Can your children invite their friends over and know that this is a safe place to be? It should be a place of rest, and everyone who enters and leaves should have felt the presence of God. And then lastly is our community, our work, our ministry. You can call it 100 different things, but anyone who lives outside the doors of your home. So those are the order that God has given you to put your energy and light into. So those are our God-given priorities in that particular order, where we need to be focused on shining our light the most. And remember, shining our light doesn't mean glorifying ourselves and us looking good and us having a platform. It means living out the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes of Jesus, to be poor in spirit, humble in heart, and to seek after God's goodness and righteousness and truth.
Well, until next time, thank you for joining us on Rise and Shine Moms, where we as moms rise so that the next generation can
shine. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.